Does the U.S. even know how to end the war on Iran?
We are absolutely obliterating them.
If there's no deal, fighting resume.
The ceasefire is on massive life support.
It's been more than 10 weeks since the start of the war, and we seem to keep hitting this point over and over again where Trump and his team say mission accomplished.
We're achieving major strides toward completing our military objective. And some people could say they're pretty well complete.
Like, how many times have we seen this headline? Very good talks in progress. That was a little less than a month into the war. Very positive discussions. This is 2 months into the war. And these are from just a few days ago. Very good talks. A deal is very possible after very good talks. And just to really make the point, this was the messaging even before the start of the war. February 6th, Trump calls U.S. and Iran talks in Oman very good. February 19th, this is about a week before the U.S. launched into war. Good talks are happening with Iran, which makes you wonder, considering how long this has dragged on, if the U.S. has miscalculated the outcome of this war very badly and keeps doing so. Not that the U.S. is losing, but its strategy isn't exactly working either. Let's consider why.
I think the problem is that Trump overestimates the power of his office and the power of the United States as a country.
I've mentioned this in previous videos that the US doesn't fight wars the way most other countries do. It's not trying to win long, drawn-out fights like a boxer trying to win on points. It's trying to win quickly by knockout. Venezuela is a good example.
Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II.
A smash-and-grab raid by U.S. Special Forces to capture the country's president, Nicolas Maduro. The U.S. had a problem. It fired a silver bullet.
The United States strategy in warfare has been less a war of attrition and one of shock and awe.
We're winning decisively with brutal efficiency, total air dominance, and an unbreakable will to accomplish the president's objectives.
The U.S. may have been looking for this same kind of rapid resolution when it launched into war with Iran, because people sometimes forget the U.S. and Iran were in talks over nuclear weapons before the start of the war, and it wasn't going well. February 10th, Iran accused of stalling. February 12th, Iran would accuse the U.S. of holding things back. February 20th, it looks like neither side trusts the other, and one day later, a question. Will there ever be a deal?
I think the president last June got frustrated with the speed of negotiation.
So came war, and the U.S. fired its silver bullet.
The United States and Israel have launched airstrikes across Iran.
The U.S. is calling the operation, quote, epic fury.
February 28th, day one, the U.S. and Israel conduct expansive airstrikes across Iran, the most devastating of which happens here in Tehran, the country's capital and nerve center.
Iranian state media has confirmed its supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, has been killed in his compound.
America is winning, decisively, devastatingly, and without mercy.
Things seem to go well for the U.S. at first. 2 days into the war, Trump tells reporters this'll last a month, max.
President Trump over the weekend told the Daily Mail he expects the operation will last roughly 4 weeks.
But a day later, the timeline expands in a very subtle way. 4 to 5 weeks, and with the capability to go far longer than that.
Mr. President, you've said the war is, quote, very complete, but your defense secretary says this is just the beginning. So which is it, and how long should Americans be prepared?
Well, I think
for
you could
this
say
war
it
to last?
both. We could call it a tremendous success right now as we leave here. I could call it, or we could go further, and we're going to go further.
The U.S. might have thought, cut off the head. This guy's ruled Iran for nearly 40 years. Surely they'll buckle. But they didn't.
For the first time in history, Iranian officials say the country has closed the Strait of Hormuz following joint strikes from the U.S. and Israel.
And it's very telling that the new Ayatollah, his very first public statement read by an Iranian state TV presenter, one of the very first things he mentions, the country's new weapon, leverage over world oil.
Oil prices now surging after the attack.
$80 a barrel, $90 a barrel,
$100 a barrel.
The regime is much more than its leadership. There's an entrenched power system that goes all the way down through within the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps that really helps keep the people in power. And cutting off the heads of that doesn't eliminate the system.
Iran's not Venezuela. It's the first country in the last 15 months since Trump came to office that has stood up to Trump and said, we don't care what the cost is. This is not what we're going to do under no circumstance.
By this point, it was clear shock and awe wasn't going to work. Iran's military was never meant to fight the U.S. one-to-one on a level playing field. Speedboats, kamikaze drones, laying mines in the strait, launching missiles at neighbors. Iran's fighting force could be beaten, but it couldn't be contained, and things were about to get worse.
I thought oil prices would go to $200, $250. It's at $100 now. And I think you're surprised, and I'm surprised.
Iran is vowing to attack any ship trying to pass through the Strait of Hormuz.
Oil prices have been on a roller coaster and remain quite a bit higher this morning.
By this point, shutting down the Strait of Hormuz had become a truly urgent problem, untenable globally, and a nightmare domestically for Trump himself. He needed another silver bullet. On April 5th, so a little over a month into the war, Trump snaps. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day all wrapped up in one in Iran. This was widely taken as a threat to indiscriminately bomb Iran's civilian infrastructure, which is extreme because that would be a war crime. And Trump goes on, open the strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. And there was a deadline.
We're giving them till tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern time, and after that, they're going to have no bridges, they're going to have no power plants. Stone Ages, yeah.
And Trump goes one step further, threatening to commit what sounds an awful lot like genocide. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. Now, we have no way of knowing if this was, in fact, the plan, or if there was a plan at all. Because on the brink, with only hours to spare, maybe this new silver bullet, the most extreme ultimatum imaginable, maybe it worked. Suddenly there was a deal, an agreement to stop the fighting for 2 weeks. This was the single most significant development towards peace the world had seen since the war started just over a month earlier. But this would be the flimsiest of ceasefires.
I think this comes from a legitimate misunderstanding. I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't.
Within a day, Israel would launch its heaviest bombardment yet on Hezbollah, Iran's ally in Lebanon. The strait was shut down once again. The ceasefire, a bit of a joke.
Look, I think right from the beginning, one of the key contradictions here was between military objectives and strategic objectives.
This is the thing. Ceasefires don't work all that well if there's no real agreement on how to solve underlying problems. At first, once the Lebanon issue was cleared up, it sounded like they had. And if you'd only read the headlines of the day, you might have believed this was all coming to an end. The Iranians had agreed to everything. Their nuclear program suspended. Their leverage over the strait given up. The timeline faster than you could imagine. Except literally a day later, after all those headlines come out, there's this one. More ships attacked. The U.S. refusing to lift its own blockade of Iranian ports, and the strait itself was closing once again.
The U.S. won this war, militarily speaking. Clearly, the U.S. and Israel caused more damage in Iran to the Iranian regime than vice versa. But what's the end result? There's been no change in the regime. There's not necessarily been a removal of Iran's ability to assert its power through its proxy militias. And the nuclear question is still up in the air. That's going to have to be the result of negotiations. The misjudgment to me seemed to be about the difference between military tactics and military goals versus strategic objectives and actually creating change in Iran.
I think the administration thought they could get away with this attack in the same way that they got away with the attack in June. But the problem here was that the president's amorphous policy objectives or political objectives at the end of this conflict left a door open to Iran, causing all sorts of madness and mayhem.
Yeah, talk about madness and mayhem. You can't even realistically follow all the ups and downs. May 3rd, U.S. Central Command announces Project Freedom, a plan to escort and protect tanker traffic in the Strait. A massive effort with massive military heft. But less than 48 hours later, the operation is paused indefinitely. The reason? Great progress has been made toward a complete and final agreement with representatives of Iran. And so the operation put on pause to see whether or not the agreement can be finalized and signed.
We're in I call it a skirmish, because that's what it is. It's a skirmish.
There's both a lack of technical sophistication on the U.S. side, certainly an impatience on the U.S. side, and I think those have both brought us to the place in which we find ourselves today.
Right now, got a situation of no peace, no war, essentially a stalemate. I don't think that that's a sustainable situation for either Iran or the United States.
I think what we're seeing in Iran right now is not necessarily that America has no way of winning. It's more of a real-time realization that military power doesn't guarantee a win. There are limits.
We're doing unbelievably well, as we did in Venezuela, where it was rapid, over in one day.
And while the U.S. can bomb Iran, kill its leaders, blockade its ports, destroy its navy, neutralize its missiles, none of these things seems to have changed the fundamentals.
We're doing very well in Iran. It's going very smoothly, and we'll see what happens.
And ultimately, war is much easier to declare over than to actually